Thank you very much. The next question for our Trinitarian experts from our non-Trinitarian panel. Did Yeshua directly present and teach others that God existed with the triune nature and that he himself was the triune God the Son? 2 minutes.
Well, not obviously using that specific terminology, but look at the things that Jesus did. First of all, he distinguished himself from the Father, yet he identified himself and did things that only God can possibly do. We saw in John chapter 17, his prayer that is found there, the claims that he made for himself, the fact that he accepted worship. And so he did things that indicated his own recognition of his own deity. And then in the commissioning of the disciples, sent them out and said to baptize in the name, singular, of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. I wish we had time to walk through, for example, John chapter 5, where Jesus emphasized the unity that exists between he and the Father. The fact that he's not off on his own. He's not off doing things as some separate God. The unity that exists between he and the Father. He says, I do nothing ap eautu, from myself. But of course, none of the divine persons do something separate from, in distinction to, in contradiction to the other divine persons. And so the terminology isn't the issue. The fact that Jesus acts as the God of Israel and he speaks in that way, and he even says, you've heard it said of old, the words of God, I say unto you, all of these things indicate that clearly he views himself in that way and wishes his disciples to view himself in that way as well.
And there are other verses as well. Jesus says, if anyone loves me, he'll obey my teaching. My Father will love him, and we will come to him and make our home with him. And then he speaks of the Counselor, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name. Bear in mind also in John 5 and John 8, the Jewish hearers then took up stones to stone him. They wanted to kill him because of his very explicit identification with God. That's what they heard to the point of wanting to kill him. And when Thomas says to him, my Lord and my God, he doesn't rebuke him or say you're misguided. And yes, we put together the truth that the Father is Jesus God and that Jesus himself is God. God, complex in his unity, the scriptural witness which we are beholden to.
Thank you. Gentlemen, 2 minutes or 90 seconds for rebuttal.
One comment on the passage with John where Thomas addresses my Lord and my God. The word that is used there in Greek is the counterpart to Elohim, which is used not only for God, but used for angels. It's used for mighty men. It's used for judges. So you can't make a case that he was saying, my Lord and my God. Not in that passage.
John 17:5, glorify me with the glory I had in prospect. Augustine, the great Trinitarian, and Calvin's theologian agreed with us on that point. So do not assume that when you say, give me the glory now that I had with you, you can have something in prospect. You have a reward with the Lord. It says in Matthew 6:1, you have it. In the future, you will say, give me now the body which I have. Paul says you have an eternal body now. You have it. In the future, you'll say, now give me the body that I had with you. Simply read as a Jew. Do not read as a Western American. And we'll understand John 17:5 properly.
I can't imagine how anyone hearing John 17:5 originally would have read the word in prospect into what Jesus was saying, especially when in prayer he's saying, glorify me, if you're just merely a human being who was supernaturally begotten. But I must respond and refute the falsehood that was just presented to you. Thomas said, "Hakuriasmu kai hatheasmu." That's the exact terminology used in Psalm 34:23 in the Greek Septuagint, as well as in Psalm 16, both about Yahweh. The idea that theos here has anything to do with a mere angel, if we looked at someone and said, my Lord and my God, at their resurrection, and then they said, have you believed because of this, identifying it as faith, the idea that kurios and theos could be put together, and that's an angel, utterly impossible in the text.
There's not a single instance in the New Testament where theos, God, is used the way you're arguing, and in particular in John. So that's a complete impossibility of interpretation there. Not only so, Jesus says, believe that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. What a wonderful description of God's unity expressed in Father and Son. You know, the constant mantra I'm hearing about read this through Jewish eyes and not through Western eyes. I am Jewish. I've studied with Jewish scholars. I immerse myself in Jewish literature. And there's no possible way you could read this as written, or if it was originally spoken in Hebrew or Aramaic, whatever, and come to other conclusions. That to me is a Western reading, trying to put something on a text that the text won't bear, and even the alleged contradictions you can't bear. That to me sounds very Western, and it's thinking, as opposed to a Semitic way, which would have no problem with these types of concepts.
Socinianism is not Western. It's quite modern. It's quite rational.